At 4 o'clock, I'd like to call the meeting of the Isabella County Board of Commissioners work session to order. Stand for the pledge, please.
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Hey, Clerk Lux, a roll call, please.
Commissioner Hutchinson,
Here.
Commissioner Engler, Commissioner Jalzinski,
Here.
Commissioner Horton,
Here.
Commissioner Marino,
Here.
Commissioner Swaney,
Here.
Commissioner Hope,
Here.
all present, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Clerk Lux. Next up would be approval of the agenda. We'll have general public comment. Under presentations and special reports, we'll have an administrator controller report. We have 3 appointments to boards and commissions. And then committee reports, Finance and Administration Committee.
Finance and Administration Committee is all set for this afternoon, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. And Criminal Justice and County Affairs Committee.
Justice and County Affairs Committee is all set, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. And Human Resources and Public Works Committee.
Human Resources and Public Works Committee is all set, Mr. Chairman.
And item D is Intergovernmental Affairs. Commissioner Marino, do we have any intergovernmental affairs today?
Not at this time.
Thank you. And then that will bring us down to administrator controller issues, unfinished business. Under new business, and this is why the agenda was amended earlier today, we're going to consider approving the 2022 Michigan Medical Marijuana Operation and Oversight Grant Agreement. So $7,100 grant that we need to, if we're going to approve it, we need to do it by the end of the month. So that's why that was added on. And then we will have another opportunity for general public comments, announcements, and then adjournment. So with that, is there a motion to approve the agenda?
So moved. Support Hutchinson.
Moved and supported. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
We have an agenda. Next up is general public comment. Do we have anyone for general public comment? Michelle, do we have anyone online? Okay, and give it just a minute. General public comment, you're just in time. All right, we'll move on to presentations and special reports. Administrator Controller Frost.
Yes, sir. So a whole quarter down. How about that? Quarter in. Happy National County Government Month. NACO tells us that April is National County Government Month. So we're all happy to be here. Lots going on out at the MRF. I'm glad to see Director Borton here. I know last time he was here, he told you he'd be bringing you pictures of the truck scale replacement project. If you happen by the MRF, you need to check that out. It is quite and improvement out there. Really brings the MRF into the 21st century, I think, with the digital load technology on the scale. And I just want to say that project would not have happened without the Saginaw Chippewa Indian Tribes 2% funding. That was a completely paid for 2% funding request. I think it's maybe some with the city on that purchase, Jake, some cost sharing with the city, but certainly the bulk of it came from that 2% grant. So we can't say enough about that partnership. Also out at the MRF, Jake and I released the RFP for the feasibility assessment study of our recycling operations. That those proposals are due May 6th. So we're excited to see what comes in. We did have, as is part of all of our RFPs and RFBs that we released, we had a mandatory pre-bid meeting, if you will, with the vendors that sets our vendor pool, right? You have to show up, it's mandatory, and you can only bid, if you will, or enter a proposal if you were at that meeting. We did have that meeting last week, I believe, and we only had one vendor show up. That was disappointing, but it was the right vendor. They do a lot of work specifically with MRFs, and so we're excited to see their proposal come May. That's good. Also, a lot going on with the correctional facility project right now. Certainly, I want to share some really good news. At the end of the quarter, on March 31st, we were able to lock in the first quarter rates with USDA on the project. That's a good and necessary step. We locked in at 2.125%. And basically we need to meet conditions, move forward within a year of that date. So by April 1st of 2023. So that part was exciting. The letdown came the next week when bids came back in on the project. As you remember, through work of the forecast model for financing, and just looking at budget and what we could do, we came up with a new budget of $35 million for that project, being what we feel we can handle for a bond payment going forward for the 40 years. That was including taking $8 million of ARP monies at that, and using it towards that project. So really the total borrow, if you would be around 27 million. So bids came in early April on the project at 46 million. So it was a somber meeting, of course, to hear that news. But we definitely have the right people at the table to figure this out. We definitely have a pause right now due to the construction environment, the supply chain issues, crazy interest rates happening right now. So we're looking at, do we rebid? Do we redo? Do we rebuild? What does that look like? So we're kind of pausing right now and taking a hard look at that. Looking even at this afternoon, MERS was on site. I reached out to them to say, well, our logic is to, use some of these dollars we have now towards this project. What if we use those dollars instead towards our MERS funding, right? We can't use it directly, but we can use it in ways that free up other general fund dollars. Can we apply that to our MERS unfunded liability? They're actually MERS came on site today to talk to Treasurer Pickens and I about that and run through their model. So I think we're going to have a lot better information come June when we get our 2021 actuarial valuation from MERS. It's going to be more up-to-date information. And I think once we get that in June, we'll have a better understanding of what dollars could do being put to that use instead. So there's definitely options out there for us, and we're definitely pursuing all of those. I do want to obviously note, and I think we all know this, that the current facility can't continue to serve as our correctional facility well into the future, right? Without a major influx of upgrades, without a major influx of investment. We always thought it would be the sewer, right, Tom? That would go first over there, but we found out a couple weeks ago that it was the heat. We had a heat exchanger have a little explosion on the roof. just a small one though, Commissioner. So we actually got lucky. And it was just the heat exchanger in one of the rooftop units. But this happened about a month ago, right? If you remember, temperatures were dropping back then. And so it did not allow us, we weren't able to maintain the temperatures that MDOC requires. So sheriff was made to move some of the inmates into a common area, right, which presents its own concerns with staffing and of the inmates, supervision of the inmates. So we had, this happened, of course, on a Friday. So on a Saturday morning, I was Zooming with sheriff and our emergency management director, Mark Griffiths, and our facilities director, Steve Shoemaker. And we're, what do we do, right? The last thing you want to do is transport inmates to another location. Sheriff was calling around, making sure beds were available to do that if need be. That's, that's the last thing that you want to do. So we're on this Zoom and Director Griffiths says, okay, let me get this straight. If I had a magic tube that produced heat and I could plug that tube into the jail and give you heat, would that solve your problem? He said, yes, Mark, it would. He said, I know a guy. And within, I think, an hour, that gentleman was at the correctional facility meeting our facilities director. By later that day, I think the equipment was up, running, installed, and the following weekend, a new heat exchanger was put in place. Phenomenal response, not only from sheriff, not only from corrections, not only from facilities, not only from our emergency management director, but when you're sitting there in a Zoom like that and you think there's no answer, there's no help, go team Isabella. They figured it out. They showed up and they got it done. So I want to share that story for all those reasons, I guess. We will be turning that claim into MMRMA. I don't know if they'll cover it yet, but we got out of it fairly cheap. I think as Chairman Hope had mentioned at the last meeting, I did attend the MAC legislative conference in March in Lansing with Commissioners Marino and Hope. And we provided some of the priorities that MAC is looking at in 22 as a handout to you. Been working with the ARPA work group. They have been working hard to select some projects to bring forward that they recommend. So far, they're looking at 7 projects, just over about $912,000 that we could use ARPA dollars to fund for the county. Obviously, I've been attending lots of meetings and meeting with departments monthly. I just want to thank Commissioner Horton and Commissioner Jalazinski for attending in my absence when I'm not able to. Thank you. And lastly, I just would say that we're still taking a look in admin office with assessing duties and needs of the department. We do have an upcoming retirement. Miss Leanne Grinzinger is leaving us and retiring next month. So just taking a look again at the duties in the office to see what would best meet our needs. So are there any questions for me in that or anything else? Okay.
Any hands up? Thank you, Ms. Frost. We will move on to appointments to boards and commissions. Under A, Commissioner Engler, would you present that one, please?
Yeah, consider accepting with regret the resignation of Travis Keaton from the Isabella County Parks and Recreation Committee, effective immediately. Pretty self-explanatory. So Travis has been on the board for quite a few years. We'll miss him.
Good. And the next one, B, Vice Chairman Horton, would you present that, please? Sure. I spoke with Mr. Salmick. He's eager to serve on that board. He served on an oversight board for Region 7, which would have been a conflict of interest. So he had to remove himself from that board so that he could serve on this board for us. But we appreciate that. And then item C, Commissioner Sweeney, would you present item C, please?
Consider appointing Isabella County Trial Court Administrator Carrie Curtis to serve as an Isabella County Magistrate upon the recommendation of the judges of the 76th District Court. I believe Carrie Curtis could speak on this if you wish, but isn't it a renewal? Haven't you been magistrate? No? Okay.
No, Sandra Strauss is retiring, so congratulations.
The backup, so.
Oh.
So yeah, that's Grace Strauss is retiring in May, so that is going to be a huge loss for all of us, but congratulations to her. Just in the meantime, I'm going to be covering here and there where I can, just to help out. We have hired someone who will be bringing to you for approval as well, which is very exciting in this current market for employees. So statutorily, we have to come to the board to get your permission. That's all I'm here for. Judge James does send his regrets, but he is out of the state right now. So I could answer any questions if you have them.
Questions for Carrie? Okay. Let's see to Carrie, but thank you.
All right, thank you. Usually loud, so.
And with that, that brings us down to committee reports, Finance and Administration Committee.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. First up, consider ratifying and placing on file the April 1st, 2020 invoice list in the amount of $255,254.29. The April 8th, 2022 invoice list in the amount of $348,466.09. And the adjustment list dated April 14th, 2022. We received these by email, all commissioners did. We had a chance to discuss them in the Finance and Administration Committee, which none of us at that in attendance found anything out of the ordinary. And then as far as the high dollar amounts go, a lot of these we've approved, a lot of these are ongoing. We have cell phone bills. Obviously, we have the biweekly animal control, but this looks like a little different one, different issue here. We have the March public defender appointments, which is fairly common every month. And then we also have hats. That's the one I was thinking about, but the biweekly animal control contract. We have the monthly medical examiner contract in there. That's over $5,000. That came in at over $12,000. And then on the adjustment list, nothing really out of the ordinary on that. The usual standard cast of characters, which a couple small little ones thrown in. So, commissioners, have any questions on this? Okay, hearing and seeing none, Chairman Hope, this will move forward to this evening.
Second item for the committee is consider approving the 2022 Equalization Report on the STC Form L-4024 as presented by the Equalization Department, required by state statute, and authorize the chairman of the Board of Commissioners and the county clerk to sign the same, and directed to be filed with the county clerk's office and with the state tax commission in a timely manner. I think Pete Preston's here, so Pete's the expert on this report.
Expert's a little heavy word, but I'll take it. Good afternoon, all. Well, what has been provided to you, and as usual, right before the meeting, and our apologies for that, but that's just the time frame that we deal with from getting the information from the assessors from their March board of review, and then tabulating that, making sure that all the units are in ratio, so that this board does not have to factor that would essentially affect all of the properties in a given class in a given unit. So we do not want that. Because that affects everybody when there's only been an issue possibly with a couple different properties. So what has been provided to you has been compiled back in our office, and it is thinned down a little bit from what you've seen in the past. And if I could walk through that. So the board's primary responsibility is the Form 4024, which is our pages 3 through 5. The director signs page 2, which is what needs to be filed with the state, but pages 3 through 5 are what needs to be signed by the chair and the clerk, as well as the equalization director, and submitted to the state tax commission. So those two forms I just mentioned, the one by equalization and the 4024, are an overall, here's what the assessed values are in Isabella County. The detailed tabulation, though, is provided on the following pages. So pages 6 through 11 as local unit by unit assessed value. Again, no factors. But where we really want to look is page 12, which is a summary of the assessed value increase. If you can turn to page 12, you can see in the lower right-hand corner that Isabella County saw an almost $300 million increase in assessed value. Assessed value is defined as half of what estimated market value is. So you can see that Isabella County market value has essentially increased close to $600 million. As I always have said at this meeting many times in the past, is Mr. Green would be going forward, looking for the next pages, which has to do with what is the taxable value and the realized revenue increase. And I will say estimated, because this does not include a lot of the capture from special assessment districts, DDAs and such. So this is a gross number. So please don't take this to the bank quite yet. There will be potential changes at July and December board of reviews. There will be tax appeals that will be going through during the year. Keep an eye on that. But if you turn to page 15 in the lower right-hand corner, that the county's general fund is looking over the last year between the 2022 tax year and the 2021, a realized taxable revenue increase of a little over $1.5 million. And so that's substantial. And if you count all the county's levies for Medicare, senior services, and parks, you're looking at about $2.3 million. The question, of course, is how much does wind contribute to this increase? And so, again, this includes both CO and the Northern Wind Project. All are complete and being valued at their full capacity. And page 16 in the lower right-hand corner of that 1.5 million realized for the almost $1 million can be, and that's increase over last year, can be attributed to the wind turbine projects. Over on the left side, you can see there's 2022 taxable value and 2021, and the two. So in 2021, $1.2 million was recognized from the wind turbine project, and then this year, 2.2. Realize that the CO project is now on a more aggressive depreciation schedule. As it gets older, it's going to depreciate faster. That's why you don't see just automatically it doubled. The wind project in the north was not fully constructed, so it was valued at 50% of what it previously would have been. So this is the most accurate numbers that we have right now. This is what will be reported to the state tax commission by the time that processing the bills in June. We will have a finer point on the pen. So that concludes what I have. I'd be happy to answer any questions you may have.
Questions for Pete?
I got a question, not on the report, but I've been talking with some of my townships and some of the assessors, and I know there was quite a backlog. What are you doing to address that? I'm kind of getting tired of hearing about. I know, and that's, of course, that's a source of revenue for the county is having those up to date. And I know they were short for some quite a while, but you update me on that and tell me exactly, are we going to get up to speed pretty soon on it or not? I know we got, the tax season, another one coming up. So
We do have a shortage of staff in the office, and we continue to have that. I believe that, and I don't want to speak for Nicole, but I think administration has posted that position. I have been filling in with my staff. I've actually hired somebody for my company to come in and assist in the office and doing deeds. In order to do deeds, you're usually looking at somebody with a number of years of experience. I'm cautiously optimistic that with this current advertisement that you'll get somebody. And I have not come to the county in these last 4 months and asked for any increase to my contract, because we needed to get them done. And the dilemma here is that Isabella County has historically has provided a tremendous service to the local assessors and the local units by doing what's a maintenance sheet that's put over the deed. And that's where equalization is filling this out. You need to realize also that the assessors are getting the same document. What they're doing though is waiting for that maintenance sheet that describes it. And I'm a local unit assessor in 5 communities that are in 3 different counties. That doesn't happen. The county doesn't provide anything. It's all on the assessor, because that's the assessor's responsibility, is situs and where the property is being assessed and who owns the property as well. So we've been actively trying to keep up on this, but we've lost a person that had 15 years of experience doing this maintenance sheet. And I've brought in my people from other places to do this infill. Where we're at right now, we're about 2 months behind. And we're aiming for the tax bills that go out. These tax bills and assessment notices, this whole thing that I've described to you concerning that other counties don't necessarily provide this level of service, is complicated also by that Isabella County also provides another service that other counties do, but they charge for it. Isabella County does not. And that's the printing of the assessment. If an assessor is 6 months behind, local unit will never know, because the information is just going into the counties, and we're taking all the responsibility for names and addresses being correct. And really the responsibility is on the local unit assessor. That's something we need to talk about in the future. Right now, we're trying to plug a hole in the dike, and we're trying to make sure it gets done. I've spoke to a couple local unit treasurers, and honestly, I have not spoke to really any assessors that have been doing their own deeds. There are many of them very capable to do it on their own. Some of the local treasurers, because they're elected, catch a little more heat usually than a contracted assessor, and I'm very aware of that. And each one I've spoke to, concerns about being overrun with returns and stuff, keep track of them. Let me know how many there are. What will the county pay for that? I don't know. Keep track of them. I need to see. I also need to measure our accuracy of the people that I have in place. I have not had one local unit treasurer respond back to me with a list or, hey, we had to send out 100 notices. I would apologize. I would go to the township board. I would give them $50 plus to say, we're trying, doing the best we can. But we will be back before you to try to address this, especially if no one applies for this position, because it's what the historical nature of entering this information is, and that the townships are used to. You need to consider that level of service and how we're going to keep it up. Long answer to a short question. I always do that.
I'd rather have all the information than partial. So thank you.
Other questions or comments? Thank you, Pete. We'll move this into our meeting later this afternoon.
Thank you, Pete.
Okay, next up, consider approving the State of Michigan Department of Environment, Great Lakes and Energy, or EGLE, Part 201 consent to enter private property forms for the 6 parcels impacted in the county's downtown campus and authorize the board chair to sign the same. This was presented in committee, and this has to do with the suspected release of tetrachloroethylene, which is a hazardous substance that's used in dry cleaning. And basically, the state is requesting, and I'm putting those words in quotation marks, because they're asking nicely right now, but they don't play nice in the sandbox. So they'll come in and just throw you out of the sandbox if need be. So
Kind of like when my dad used to request that we rake the yard or
Yes,
something like
yes,
that. He put it in the
exactly.
form of a question, but it really wasn't.
right, and they're going to come in and collect soil and groundwater and perform other activities to determine the necessary response activities. So we're not singled out in any means. This is just their request to perform some samples, and it's been required that the chairperson sign the forms necessary. So that's it, pretty much in a nutshell. Any questions, concerns, comments? All right, hearing and seeing none, that will move forward to this evening. And Mr. Chairman, that completes the afternoon work of the Finance and Administration Committee.
Thank you, gentlemen. Next up is Criminal Justice and County Affairs Committee.
All right, item number 1, consider approving the fiscal year 2023 Community Corrections Application and Plan in the amount of $82,751. Court Administrator Carrie Curtis and Andrew just told me last Tuesday. Thanks.
Our proposal for the fiscal year 2023 community corrections grant application. So in 2022, we made some big changes. First and foremost, and amazingly great, we hired Andy Foster, who has been a long-term court officer here at the community corrections coordinator. He did a fantastic job. We also moved to an in-house cognitive group using an off-the-shelf product for Thinking Matters, called Thinking Matters, that allowed us to serve a significantly greater number of clients and it reduced the cost because we use in-house employees to facilitate this. Really big things we did in 2022 are working well. So 2023, we are continuing the same program, adjusting the numbers a little bit based on the actual usage for 2022 so far. And then we're going to ask the state to pay for Andy's time to complete. And I'll tell you a little bit about what that involves. They are willing to hopefully fund a little bit of the salary for that because they make us do that. So that is where we are at. 1,000 for 2023. We received 68,000 for the current year. If that is the amount they give us, we can still operate our program on that amount, but we would like them to participate more in the services that they want us to offer.
Well, the pretrial assessment is necessary to enroll people into our pretrial services. We have to have that done for an eligibility requirement. So we have to do it anyway. I've been doing it this year and I've done 186 of those so far this year. And we're asking for money for 400. I'm sure we'll actually get that. And I'm sure that we'll use it all. So it's just it's also gathering information for the state, demographic information on everybody who's coming through the jail. So it's self-serving for them to pay for this for us. As far as that F-22 program goes, that's why we're asking for that.
It helps our magistrates make bond decisions. Well, that's the purpose of it. For instance, the state criteria, if
trial release with or without conditions or cash bonds. So it helps us make those decisions when we're setting bonds. Sometimes it's more accurate than other times, but it's still a judicial discretion of what you set the bond at, but it gives us another place to look for information.
All right, are there any questions for Andrew or Carrie Curtis?
Not a question, but a comment. I really like that we're doing in-house the group programming, as we spoke a little bit before the meeting, but the Thinking Matters program and doing that in-house and having that kind of flexibility and the cost savings and being able to serve more people. It's all exciting stuff. So good work.
All right, seeing no more questions, we'll move that forward to the regular session tonight. And welcome to the team.
Okay. Next up is consider submitting the compliance plan and cost analysis to the Michigan Indigent Defense Commission, the MIDC, for the fiscal year 2023 in the amount of $1,581,919, with the state contribution being $1,341,613 and the local share being $240,306. And I see we have on our screen Public Defender Hausman. In committee, we surprisingly, Jerry was on the committee when we set this. We were always kind of talking that we thought that the cost would keep on increasing our local share, and the increase, I think it was less than 2%. So we're really actually happy that the state has not started to push that up a little bit, and we'll let Public Defender Hausman talk about it and talk about the fifth requirement. So floor is all yours, Public Defender.
Good afternoon. I was actually on my way there to present this in person and got yanked back to the office. So I was hoping I was going to be there in person, but here I am. But yes, the important part, as Commissioner Engler noted, is that the local share doesn't increase by more than about 2%. That other number is kind of a draft right now. That number might change, not significantly one way or the other. The biggest change to our proposed compliance plan for fiscal year 23 is the addition of a attorney position to our office. This is something that was originally in our compliance plan dating back to fiscal year 2019. When we submitted our fiscal year 21 plan, we took that dollar amount for that salary and benefits and moved it over into contractual services, because at the time there were only 3 staff attorneys. And so the majority of our public defense cases were going to the contract. And so now that we are fully staffed and taking the majority of the cases, it's important to bring that position back into the fold. There's a number of changes in the law that have occurred over the course of the past 2 or 3 years that have increased the number of hearings that our attorneys have to attend. And so it's important to bring that forward or bring that back into the fold. But as we do start to do this every year, it really gets easier and easier. And so we're ready to hit the submit button on the grant for another year.
Any more questions? Just a quick reminder that we are required to meet all the standards regardless if we take the money or not. So we set up the committee and went the direction we decided to go, because we would have to meet the 5th standard regardless with all the other 4. This way we get the state share. Yes, Jerry.
I have just one question, and I've thought about this for a while, but when you add a full-time attorney to bring more of the work in-house, how does that impact the contractual attorneys? I'm sure they're looking at having a certain amount of income. Are you able to keep those numbers up?
Well, it's kind of funny because at the present time, I think we only have about 3 people on the contract actively taking cases. So they're more than getting their fair share, I guess, at this point. the original plan was that they were only going to take 25% of those criminal cases, but then they're still taking the other cases that aren't criminal. So the juvenile delinquency cases, the probate cases, the neglect and abuse, the mental health petitions, personal protection orders, things like that that aren't included in the indigent defense money that we receive. So, they're still getting that 25% share of the criminal matters as well as that other amount that's not included in the grant.
Thank you.
Okay, any more questions? Seeing none, we'll move that forward to the business session tonight. And we have another item, and it's consider approving the return of $5,548 to the Region 6 allocation to meet the Homeland Security Grant and prioritize area project requirements, and authorize board chair to sign the letter to Ms. Richmond. And we have Director Griffiths on here to explain why we have to give money back, but it's not unusual that we do this. It's a regional. We've had to do this before where it all goes in a big pot and it's separated out, and Isabella County that's their share. So I remain a little bit tough on you, Director.
Well, you just about covered everything perfectly. So the region does get an allocation, and that allocation has smaller allocations to each of the counties that make up the region when the grant is designated. The requirements of the grant are increasing for us to fund priority areas. So the best way for us to make sure the priority areas are funded is to have money set aside in that grant budget locally that we set as the regional board. And the best way to make sure we do that is to reallocate this money back to the regional pot. Isabella County will still benefit from it. We still have a say in where this money goes and what it's spent on. But it also really helps Isabella make sure that we've got the amount of money we need to make sure the grant doesn't have any audit findings on meeting the thresholds needed in the grant. So this is a reallocation of $5,548. We still have money left over in our local allocation, which we'll use on projects to benefit Isabella County as we've done in the past. And this is, you said, is becoming a normal part of our process at this point. So if there's any questions, I'll be happy to answer them.
Any questions for Director Griffiths? Yeah, I think there's still $22,000 left, about approximately that we'll be getting. So
yeah, exactly.
Good investment. Any more questions? Seeing none, we'll move that forward to tonight's meeting. And Mr. Chairman, that completes the work of the Criminal Justice and County Affairs.
Thank you, gentlemen. We'll move right along to Human Resources and Public Works Committee.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Our first and only item is consider entering into a 3-year contract with Waste Management of Michigan Incorporated for a flat rate of both hauling and disposal of trash residual from the Isabella County Material Recovery Facility at an approximate cost of $534.58 per pull, with a one-time new setup fee of $250, and authorize the board chair to sign the same. We have Jake Borton, our MRF director, here to give us the background on this. Thank you, Jake. Hi.
Good evening. As you can see by the staff report, we released an RFP on the 8th of March. We had a pre-bid meeting on the 15th. That pre-bid meeting brung in 3 major haulers, Waste Management, GFL, and Republic Services. That RFP then concluded on the 25th with them 3 haulers submitting applications or an RFP for that. As you can see by the staff report, also GFL come in at $750 flat rate pull. Keeping in mind our present contract right now with Granger is at $585. The other 2 bids come in actually within pennies. Granger's bid come in at $534.25 per pull. However, Granger Services does not utilize our facility for other services that are stipulated in a recycling ordinance, such as recycling material picked up in Isabella County is supposed to come through Isabella County's recycling facility. They do not use the facility and we're, I mean, we haven't done any tracking devicing, but we are sure that they are pulling recyclable materials and taking it outside of the county. Waste management's price come in at $534.58 per pull. So you understand the math on that. As you can read on the contract itself from Waste Management, the haul rate is $430 on that haul rate. They waive their surcharge for fuel. They have an environmental charge. That environmental charge is, as you can see on the highlighted area on the contract, the EVC is 20%, which comes out to $86 when you multiply everything out. There's also an RCR, which is a regulatory cost recovery charge. That comes out at $18.57, bringing us to the total of $534.58 on that. Like I say, the two contracts or the two pricings on them RFPs were within pennies. You'd almost believe that these guys talk to each other. Whether they do or not is entirely, not of my concern. The concerns is that we get the best bang for the buck for the county. And as you can see by the financial impact, it will have a positive impact on our budget for this year, considering that we are going to be reducing the price of our per pull cost on that contract from $585 down to $534.58. And my recommendation is to enter into a contract with Waste Management, a 3-year contract with that at $534.58 pull and a $250 one-time setup fee. Any questions?
Go ahead, Jerry.
Define what is a pool? How many cubic yards or is that?
They're a 40, they call it a 40-yard compactor box. It's usually based on tonnage. I think we were averaging 7.24 tons per pull through the course of the year. So, that's the only way that I can explain it, in the fact that it's based off of tonnages.
Well, the material that you're disposing of, is that stuff that's people just toss in carelessly, or is it stuff that people are expecting that they're gonna be recycled, but there's no market for it and you're getting rid of it? Or
So much of it, Commissioner, is exactly what you're saying. It's the wishful recycler is what we consider in the industry. Well, it says it's recyclable on the package or on this or on that. It is not something that we're able to recycle through the county now. So, some of it, yeah, in some cases, there is some plastics that, as far as plastic bags, things like that. Is it recyclable? Yes. Is it justifiable for the county to spend the money, labor dollars wise, to process that material? No. So, them are decisions that I have to make as to whether it is recyclable dollar wise to make it profitable enough for the county. In most cases, everything that comes in plastics wise, we do everything we can to be able to recycle it, but it's more the plastic bag and things of that nature that do come in. There'll be some plastics that'll come in, it'll have metal in it, plastic toys, things of that nature, just not recyclable because of the fact that we'd have to spend way too much time trying to tear that particular product apart to be able to separate the two things out to be able to make it recyclable.
educational component to MRF that might improve that situation? I'm out there sometimes.
No, and I greatly appreciate the questioning and the comment from a commissioner. As you will see coming forward with our RFP from the feasibility study, an educational component is part of that RFP. And it has to be for recycling to continue to advance. If you're not, unfortunately, if you're not continuously telling the consumer what is recyclable and what is not recyclable, you will continue to have the wishful recycler. It is just, it's a well-known fact all the way across the country. Data shows it. You can run an advertising campaign for recycling on a monthly basis. If you take a month off, you see the differences in the recyclable material. And it is like the 30 or 40% difference. And it's just, it's pretty static on it as far as what people will, if you're not continuously showing them what is recyclable. You take a month off of that education program and then rates drop tremendously.
Thank you.
Any more questions?
And I'm sure you've never heard this before, Jake, but that all has to do with the residual, and there's 5% difference in that makes a big difference as far as the bottom line, because getting rid of all that extra trash that's not recyclable is a huge expense. So, and that's, I know former Chairman Green was always asking that question every month, and I'm kind of taking up ask it every month too. So we keep an eye on that number because it is about education, and we've tried, and that's a big deal. If you could get that number under 10% or even less would be, makes a big deal. And overall, second question I have is, out of those three companies, who has the biggest footprint in the county? Would it be Waste Management or?
I can't give you an honest answer on it, not knowing for sure. I'm going to say that Waste is probably one of the bigger footprints. But Republic has a strong footprint as well, because of the fact that they do have the city's contract. So we're also starting to see more and more, I consider it almost a neon green container that GFL has. We're starting to see more and more of them. So, but I would say at this point, it's more Waste Management's footprint than any.
Commissioner Horton.
Yes. Jake, real quick, I know this was an RFB, which is a request for bid. We're not in the bid, I'm assuming, because the low bid was not taken, that there was language in that agreement or bid language that we're not forced to take the low bid. Is that correct?
Yes, correct.
Okay, just wanted to make sure, because the 33-cent difference, I want to see that turn into something that costs a lot of money on the other side of it. So,
and that's part of the reason why I stress in that in the report itself on the fact that Granger Services does not utilize the facility. That utilization of the facility in turn is revenue back to the county with our process. So with Granger not bringing that material in, that's a loss of processing fee that we're not able to gain by them hauling material outside of the county. Waste Management does bring that material to us, and we do charge a processing fee on that. So that's why I say that's a huge deciding factor for me.
Thank you. Mr. Chair.
You mentioned plastics. Are there other items that people think are recyclable that it's just not feasible right now to?
Yeah, and we do have publication out that brown and green glass are not anything that we are taking at the facility. We still continue to get it. It's a conversation that Administrator Frost and I have had, that looking at the RFP for feasibility, is that something that we consider completely removing glass from the stream? It is something that we're going to have to consider as part of that. And that is something that it will be looked at on the feasibility study. So.
Any more questions or comments?
And I know I asked this in last week's meeting, but can you just address the fuel surcharge? Because that's in any business right now, a real nightmare.
It is, obviously, as every one of us sitting here at this table and in this room understands that fuel surcharges are, and in most cases, somewhere around a 4% fuel surcharge. In fact, the GFL proposal was a $750 flat rate pull, but there was a fuel surcharge on that I believe it was 4 cents a gallon for every penny over $4 a gallon. So it was, so there is some savings with that waiving of that fuel surcharge by all means.
Any more comments or questions? Seeing none, that concludes the work of the Human Resources and Public Works Committee, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, gentlemen. Thank you, Jake.
Thank you.
Okay, well, that brings us down to Intergovernmental Affairs. We have none. We have no administrator controller issues. We have no unfinished business. Brings us down to new business. Item A is consider approving the 2022 Michigan Medical Marijuana Operation and Oversight Grant Agreement between the State of Michigan Department of Licensing and Regulatory Affairs and Isabella County in the amount of $7,100 and authorize the board chair to sign the same. And so we'll consider that tonight. We've had quite a bit of back and forth with individuals in Lansing about getting us a document with a signature line for myself so that we can get it approved by the board. I think she was under the understanding that our administrator could just sign it. Said, no, we got to have a board approval for it. I don't know if there's anything.
I would just say this is a grant that we generally receive each year. This grant used to go to the sheriff's office before there was recreational marijuana legally. Before that was legal, the medical marijuana registry card dollars could be used towards law enforcement purposes. But once recreational marijuana became legal, then those grants no longer went to law enforcement agencies. It can be used in that regard. So administration took over the oversight of the grant. Most recently, the last couple of years, administration has had it. We've used the monies. And again, these monies come from the medical marijuana registry cards. In Isabella County, we have 276 current cardholders. And this money comes to the county. We get an allotment. Our allotment is based on how many cardholders we have, $7,100. In the last few years, we've used the money to hire an attorney to come in and do a seminar on medical marijuana. We've invited our community partners to see that. Last year, we recorded that. I don't think there's been a lot of changes in that regard, so it's still available as a resource if we need to reference it, but we just wanted to do something different this year. The application this year was to buy LockMed lock boxes for the medical marijuana with the goal of limiting youth access to the marijuana. That was the gist behind the application. So thank you for your consideration to add it to this agenda late. I know that's not ideal how we generally want to do things.
Yeah, we got to get it signed. And so every person with a medical marijuana card will receive free one of these lock boxes.
Sure can.
Good practical use for this, I think. Commissioner Marino.
Yeah, I just want to point out that it's a real changing market with more and more recreational marijuana shops opening up. There's less and less incentive because to get the medical marijuana card, doctor assessment and all that. So it's not a static situation. It's probably really changeable that we will have to keep our eye on, actually.
I could say to that, we certainly have seen our allotment reduced in recent years from what it was.
Because if you could just get stuff at a recreational place without the card, without all kinds of stuff, most people will think that's a lot easier.
Okay.
Recreational dispensaries give prices that the medical facilities are not allowed to give. So I guess where I would point is, as we're seeing the shift in market and reduction in number of
the state change. They have children too. Share spaces. So obviously, I see that this grant will be going towards medical license, and I'm sure we have 270% funding that will apply.
Very good. Any other questions or discussion on this item? Then we'll consider that tonight. And thank you, Ms. Frost. That brings us down to general public comments. Do we have anyone for general public comments? Okay, we have no one online still, Michelle. Okay, no public comment. That brings us down to announcements. Commissioners, do we have any announcements? Commissioner Jelazinski.
3 of them. The
Sure.
first one is, I want to go back to the equalization report. I want to thank Pete Preston for his professionalism and dedication. I know this is not, I look at this report and I get a headache every time. And I know it's scrunching a lot of data, and to be fair to all the taxpayers, but I didn't realize that we're short one staff person, and Pete picked up the ball with his own staff and didn't increase that charge back to the county for that, which I'm sure might be something in the next contract. But I do want to thank him for that. The second thing is, I did attend the Northern Michigan Counties Association meeting yesterday, and I feel bad because I sat for about 20 to 30 minutes and listened to mumbo jumbo on Zoom for the legislative report from MAC. It just didn't come through clearly. But Representative Whiteford did give an excellent report on her legislation for the mental health reform. And it's very obvious that she has at heart local control and counties' interests in this legislation. I came out of that meeting with the understanding that there's going to be a change. There's going to be legislation. But we have two different opposing, one to privatize, one to keep it local. And the understanding is that, yeah, there are services that need to be improved, and they're both trying to address that. But the bottom line is it's going to take some money because it's a Medicare-based system, and we need to have some additional monies if we're going to do a better job at it. So I don't know when this is ever going to come to completion, but I think there's going to be a merging of these two legislative bills, and hopefully something good will come out of it. And I want to invite everybody to come over to the Maple Syrup Festival in Shepherd on Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. You get 3 squares a day of sausage and pancakes. You can't get any better than that. Plus all the garage sales. You can get all the junk you want and fill up your own garage. Yard sale. Thank you.
Thank you. I just want to comment on that. Rep. Whiteford bill is something that the community mental health people have said they're far more comfortable with that bill. It, like you said, it keeps the local control. I think at one time they were talking about reducing the number of PIHPs down to 1 for the whole state rather than 10, but it still keeps all the CMHs in place. So they're far more comfortable with that than they are the Shirkey bills, which kind of hand the whole system over to private insurers. So thanks for that. Any other announcements? I have a couple. I was just made aware of this recently. There's going to be a suicide awareness ride put on by a group called Veterans for USA. And it will begin and end at Shepherd High School. Takes place June 25th, Saturday, June 25th, 10 a.m. to 4. They'll be riding around Isabella, Clare, and Midland counties. They'll come back to Shepherd, and then there will be a suicide prevention and awareness walk event at Shepherd High School track. So anyone that's interested in those events. I have flyers. It'll raise awareness and money for suicide prevention and awareness. So nice event there. The other thing I want to mention is that we have numerous openings on boards and commissions. We need people from the community to serve on these boards. There's one for the Commission on Aging Advisory for District 3. There's one for the Commission on Aging Advisory Board for District 7, which I've been trying for over a year to find somebody that will serve on that with no luck so far. But we have an opening on the Community Corrections Advisory Board, another opening on the Community Corrections Advisory Board, and then the Construction Board of Appeals. A couple openings there for different trade representatives. We need electrical trade representatives, 2 openings, building trade representative, 1 opening, and mechanical trade representative, 1 opening. And then the Economic Development Corporation Board, a couple of openings there. And 1 other opening on the Transportation Commission and 1 on the Veterans Affairs Committee. So please consider those, anyone that's listening. And that's all I have. Anything else before we? Nope. Okay, is there a motion to adjourn?
So moved. Joe Lozinski.
Is there support for that?
Support.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. We are adjourned at 5:05.